Hello and welcome to this video. My name is Becca if you're new here. If not, hello again. Real fast, me and my family used to live in New Zealand for 2 years. Right now we're just recently back into the States, but I have a ton of friends and family that are constantly asking me like what the perfect trip to New Zealand is. And I tell you, it is impossible to try to say a perfect trip because there is so much to see there. An insane amount of stuff to see. Like you could do a trip just to the North Island for 2 weeks and still not see a bunch of it. You could do a trip down to the South Island for like a month and still miss huge beautiful chunks of it. Like you can't win, honestly. But I tried my best and I tried to make a 10-day perfect itinerary of a trip down to the South Island of New Zealand. This is based loosely off of our 14-day trip that we did down there. So I kind of cut out the fluff and I cut out the kind of like mistakes that we made, even though I regret nothing about that trip. It was the trip of a lifetime. Another quick note is that the weather is very volatile in New Zealand. I would say like even in the good seasons, you will still get a random like super windy day or super rainy day. So if you can, it is really nice to try to put in a couple of buffer days so then you don't miss this huge beautiful day of whatever you had planned. New Zealand is notorious for being a really great place to travel with a camper van because they have a ton of free camping, and there's all sorts of apps on where the best locations are because it is all throughout the country. And it's also really fantastic because these same apps will have really clear markings on where all the dump station and the water refill stations are, and they are bountiful. Like you will not have a hard time finding anything like that. So it was really cool being able to save a bunch of money in that aspect, which is great because you just spent a ton of money on a camper van for 2 weeks. Here it is. Here's the 10 days. My perfect itinerary. Day 1, you're going to get into Christchurch. You're going to pick up your van. You're going to be so excited. I'm so excited for you. Anyways, you're going to start out by going to Taylor's Mistake Beach. It is just the perfect way to start out your trip to New Zealand. Of course you have to start it at a New Zealand beach because they are all incredible and all beautiful. Yeah, it is just the perfect way to start out your trip. So we spent the morning there and it is just this really cute, secluded beach. And it's just very family friendly. And like we went and got some ice cream and ate it there, and it is just such a moment. So sit there, soak it in, soak up the sunshine, enjoy it. And then after that, you're gonna do the Godly Head Loop Track because it is incredible. I remember doing that hike and the whole time I'm like, surely the rest of this trip can't beat this. Like it is so beautiful. You're on these golden hills overlooking these beautiful waterways and the grasses are just golden. The sun is beautiful and shining. Like it was majestic. So this next part, again, is up to you if you want to do it. I highly recommend it. Going to Akaroa. So it's a different kind of peninsula, and honestly, it's a totally different vibe. It is very wooded and secluded and kind of mysterious. Like it's really fun. And we only spent one night there. So we got there that evening and kind of hiked around a little bit, and then we did a little bit of hiking the next morning. That's another area that you can spend a whole weekend alone, just camping and hiking and swimming and doing all the different things. If you don't want to make the drive all the way out there, stay in Christchurch and enjoy the city. Like go visit somebody if you know them, or enjoy the food or the culture or whatever you want to do. So that's day 2. If you did go out to Akaroa, you're going to wake up there, you're going to hike a little bit, and then you're going to drive over to Mount Sunday, which if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, you're going to love this. Mount Sunday is actually at Aoraki, which is in the Rohan region. Stunning. It's a really pretty easy hike up. It doesn't take very long at all. But the whole clearing is mind-blowing. I don't know, I really loved this part of the trip. It's just so peaceful out there and it's like untouched world, it feels like. So once you hike up to the top, there's just a 360 view of just the most beautiful, gorgeous views. And it's one of those places that you want to sit and just stay there all day long and just stare. Like it is absolutely gorgeous. And I don't know what kind of magic New Zealand has, but I don't know if it's the air or if it's the water quality or what, but it just makes you happy and it makes everything beautiful. After you do that hike, you're going to come on down, hop back into your van, and we hiked at a lake called Lake Clearwater. It was like $10 to stay there, and we actually did go for a little dip. The water's freezing. All the water in the South Island is freezing. But it is a good little way stop if you decide to do that. Day 3, you're going to wake up at Lake Clearwater and then you're going to drive on over to Lake Tekapo. And this is one of those lakes that is just the iconic ones. Like it's the really, really blue lakes. It's glacial water, so it's freezing, but you have to jump in for at least a second just to say that you did. The cold water therapy, I don't know, it makes it a real experience. So yeah, definitely stop there. and enjoy the beauty, enjoy the wonder. Along the way, if you're lucky and it's in the right season, the lupins are going wild. And you have to stop and pull over and take some photos. And if you're contrived like me, you're going to put on a pretty dress and try to take some nice photos. But you're going to be really greasy from your trip, so they're not going to turn out that great. Anyways, next you're going to drive over to Mt Cook National Park. And you'll also drive by Lake Pukaki. So of course you're going to stop there for a minute and enjoy its splendor. Mt Cook is an astounding national park in New Zealand, and honestly it's probably one of the prettiest national parks in the whole world. After that, you're going to do an evening Hooker Valley track walk. This is a hike that you just have to do. It's not that intense at all. It's a pretty easy walk there and back, but it has these really beautiful views of Mt Cook, and you go over these 3 suspension bridges, and it is just such a fun experience. You have to do it. I mean, the views speak for themselves, and it is one of the most popular tracks in the country, and so definitely cannot recommend that enough. So this is where kind of the itinerary gets a little fluctuable. No, that's not a word. Flexible. So we actually really enjoy hiking. So if you're not really into hiking, skip this next day. Move Hooker Valley track to this next day. But if you are really into hiking and you like pretty intense, pretty insane hikes, you're going to do the Mueller Hut Hike. I cannot recommend it enough. It is absolutely insane what you are going to put yourself through. So you're going straight up a mountain, and it is pretty steep. The whole first half of it is just steps. And then once you get to the halfway point, it turns into scrambling over scree. And then right at the top, you're like climbing over these little icy chunks. It sounds really dangerous. It's not that scary. It is just quite intense. So make sure that you are very prepared. It can get pretty hot. You drink a lot of water. You're going to need lots of sunscreen. We actually were very lucky because there is a hut at the top. And if you book early enough, then you can get a spot in it. When we first got into the parking lot and started the hike, we were talking to some people because they were starting the same hike as us. And they were so bummed out because they wanted to stay in the hut, but it was all booked up by the time they tried to do it. And we were just like, oh, we're not going to tell you that we are actually staying there tonight. Keep in mind that we did this with a toddler on our backs. So if we can do it with a toddler on our backs, you can do it too. And there's also a little bit of flexibility with this hike. Some people will just hike up to the halfway point. It's called Sealy Tarns. That alone is worth it. Like, it is so gorgeous. And then some people are crazy enough to hike all the way up to the hut and then back down in the same day. If you do end up staying in the hut, it will be one of the most memorable nights of your life. We got to watch the sunset and the sunrise over Mt Cook. And on top of it being so beautiful, we also made some really good friends there actually, because everybody there, if they're crazy enough to hike that hike and stay in the hut, they're your kind of people. We're moving on to day 5, and that is another optional part of the trip. I don't know, some people will say not to do it. I am saying to do it because it is totally worth it. It's driving over to the Haast Pass. So this is another part of New Zealand that it just feels like it doesn't belong there. Like, it's just this crazy rainforest, and it's another, like, how did it get here? I don't know. It's really mysterious. It's really moody. It's misty. It's wet. It's ferny. It's all the really cool things, and it's a totally different vibe than the rest of the country. So even just driving in it alone is so cool. But it's also really fun because you can kind of park on several different parts along the way, and there's just all sorts of waterfalls because there's so much water in this region. And they're just 5-minute walks from the road. You go and see this really cool waterfall, and then you come back to your car, drive a little bit further, go see another one. Because again, we didn't go very far. You can go like way far, and it is so beautiful. But unfortunately, we didn't have enough time in our trip to do that. What I recommend doing though, for sure, is stopping at Blue Pools. So it is just a tiny little hike. It's not very hard at all. And then at the Blue Pools, there's actually a bridge that goes over the water. You can be crazy like my husband and jump from the bridge into the water. A ton of people do it. Yeah. I am not that brave. Or you can be crazy like me and strip down to your undies and go swimming in the freezing cold water. I told myself I am done with cold water. I've had enough of it this trip, and I refused to put on togs in our van because, yeah, I didn't want to. And then once we got there, the water was so beautiful and so crystal clear. I was like, well, I have to. So I stripped down to my undies and went in for a swim. A note about the Haast Pass, they have these devilish little creatures called sandflies. So you're going to want to invest in some good bug spray, not the natural stuff. You're going to want hardcore repellent. You're also going to want long sleeves and long pants because they are everywhere. They are so small, they can get through netting. They're straight out of a horror movie. And when they bite you, it just kind of feels like a little flea bite. Like it's not that bad. The next day is when it gets atrocious. Like you get this red welt and they're just so incredibly itchy. So make sure you're prepared for that. After you're done with the blue pools and all the festivities going on there, you're going to drive over and camp in Wanaka. Because day 6, you're going to wake up and do another hike. Because you're insane. You're like us. You love hiking, you love the challenge, you love the views. In the end, you think it's worth it. So you're going to do Roy's Peak, and you're going to start it early because it gets very hot, there's no shade, and it's one of those hikes that every step of the way up, you regret deciding to do it. It's pretty steep, it's a lot of switchbacks, but then once you get up to the top, it is one of those breathtaking views that you want to live in the moment forever because it's just incredible what you see. So you're going to do it, and you're going to love it after the fact. By the end, once you get down, you're going to be so hot and sweaty. You're never going to want to hike again, and that's okay because we're done with the hiking on this trip. The rest of your day here is easy. It's so beautiful. So you're going to stop and go to Lake Wanaka. You're going to see the Wanaka tree. You're going to go for a little dip in the cool water, and it's going to feel so refreshing after your dusty, hot, sweaty, miserable, beautiful hike. And then you're just going to spend the rest of your day walking around Wanaka because it is such a fun little town. There's so much good food, there's a lot of good shopping. Even just walking along the lakefront and down the little piers, it is a moment, it is a vibe, it's awesome. And if you don't want to hike and you don't want to do Roy's Peak, just stay in Wanaka for the day because you won't regret it. Day 7 begins with a bit of driving. Every day, I think, starts with a bit of driving pretty much. So we didn't have this planned in our itinerary. It was a spur of the moment, beautiful decision that we made. But we actually stopped in Cromwell and went fruit picking. If you're there in the right season, it is the best decision of your life to go and stop and fruit pick. Honestly, it's one of the highlights of the trip. And again, like we didn't have this on our itinerary planned. We just kind of spontaneously stopped and did it. And it's one of those like idyllic moments of life. I don't know, it was just absolutely beautiful. We were just picking cherries all morning and eating them, and they were so good. Like, the world's best fruit, I'm pretty sure, is grown in New Zealand. Incredible. They have so many different options. They have like cherries, peaches, plums, a lot of good things. After your morning, you're going to drive down to Arrowtown, which is just this charming, quirky, old gold mining village. It's just a lot of shopping and a lot of good food. So just kind of wander around there for a while, and then once you get bored of that, drive out to Glenorchy. So it's one of those things that sounds terrible. I'm going to tell you, it's a long drive out, and there's not a whole lot to do there. However, I am telling you to do it because you won't regret it. The drive out there alone is incredibly serene. It's these really winding roads along the lake, and it is just the view of a lifetime. It is stunning. And so once you get there, you have to take the picture with the classic red barn. There's just something so peaceful about the town. I don't know what it is, but it restores your soul a little bit. So we just kind of wandered around the pier, the lakefront, and enjoyed the atmosphere, the ambiance. I don't know, whatever it was, but it was wonderful, and I cannot recommend it enough. Day 8, you are going to go to Queenstown. And this is one of those towns where I just don't understand how they can jam-pack so much wonderful stuff inside of it. You can sit on the beachfront and enjoy the beautiful lake views. You can go for a little boat ride. Like, there are so many incredible parks there. There's a ton of really good food and shopping, and the gondola, they have a gondola there. It's really pricey, and honestly, I don't know if I recommend doing it. We did it, and I'm still to this day on the fence if it was worth it. But they do have a luge up there, so if you want to spend a little bit extra and make it a whole day, like, do it. Whatever you're into. It's a lot of fun. You have to go and get a Ferd burger. It's just the iconic tourist thing to do there. I have to admit, they're pretty delicious. We got them twice. After you spend the morning and afternoon there, you're going to drive down to Milford Sound Lodge. Keep in mind that this is a 5-hour drive, and you need to plan it into your trip accordingly. But it is completely worth it because the next morning you are going to wake up and do the Milford Sound cruise, which is one of those once-in-a-lifetime things. It is just the most incredible, mind-blowing experiences. A lot of the cruises will take you right up to the waterfalls. It is one of the wonders of the world. Like, I am telling you to do it. Make it a priority to get out there and enjoy it. But you do have to be careful. There's no kind of free camping anywhere in that area because it's pretty protected. So you do have to book at one of the lodges. After the cruise, we just went to a little town called Teano, which was right out of that area, and just enjoyed the rest of our day there. And then day 10 is just logistics. It's getting back to where you need to fly out back to your homeland. We paid extra to be able to drop our van off at a different location. So we actually dropped our van off at Queenstown to save us some time, which was really fun because then we got to spend more time in Queenstown. So that's when we got our second bird burger. And we got to see more of the city, and I honestly loved that part of the trip too. But a lot of people do just drive all the way back up to Christchurch and drop it off there because it does make it more affordable. So that is it. That is the perfect trip that I have. I am just so excited that you get to do this and that you're planning it for yourself right now. But I hope that you go and it is the experience of a lifetime. Because New Zealand is incredible. I don't know how they do it, but it really is. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye!